So we will continue from verse number 29. I'll read the translation of 29 and go forward to 38. At the end of the millennium, when the personality of Godhead Lord Narayan lay down within the water of devastations, Brahma began to enter into him along with all creative elements, and I also entered through his breathing. So this is the final destruction. In the morning, we were discussing that there are three types of destructions. One is after the end of Brahma's day. But in that destruction or annihilation, not all the planets lose their existence, only up to the heavenly planet. And beyond that, the higher planets, they stay intact. But then there is another destruction, which is the end of the lifespan of Brahma. So this is talking about the end of the lifespan of Brahma, when all the 14 planetary systems, they are devastated. So it is sahasra-yuga-paryante utthāyedaṁ sisṛkṣataḥ marīci-miśrā prāṇebhyo aham jajñire. So just see the calculation. This is the lifespan of Brahma. 1000 yuga. That is a day, actually, that is one day. 1000 yuga is one day of Brahma. So this is after 43 billion, and it must be 200,000 million solar years, when Brahma awoke to create again by the will of the Lord. All the rishis like Marīci, Aṅgirā, Atri, and so on were created. These are the Sapt rishis. So along with Brahma, they also manifest, were created from the transcendental body of the Lord. So they come from where? They come from Mahavishnu. And I also appeared along with. The duration of a day of life of Brahma is 43 billion 200,000 million solar years. This is stated in the Bhagavad-gītā that we see in the 8th chapter. And for this same period, Brahmājī rests at night in yoga-nidrā with the body of the Garbhodakaśāyī Viṣṇu, the generator of Brahma. Thus, after a sleeping period of Brahma, when there is again creation by the will of the Lord, through the agency of Brahma, all the great rishis again appear from different parts of the transcendental body, and Narada also appears. This means that Narada appears in the same transcendental body, just as a man wakes up from sleep in the same body. So the sleeping of Brahmājī is compared to our sleep. Like we sleep every day, but every morning we are awake and we are in the same body. Śrī Nārada is eternally free to move in all parts of the transcendental and material creations of the Almighty. That we know. Narada Muni is called the transcendental spaceman. He can go to any planet. There is no limitation for him to access any planet, even the spiritual planets. He can go to the highest spiritual planet. He can go to the Goloka. He goes to Vaikuntha, he can even reach the Goloka. That is the empowerment that he has. He has that empowerment of Bhakti Shakti. He appears and disappears in his own transcendental body, which is without distinction of body and soul. So his form is completely spiritual. There is not a tinge of matter in his body. His body is also spiritualized. So he appears and disappears in his own transcendental body, which is without distinction of body and soul, unlike conditioned people. So this is the stage of perfection. When the living entity receives the spiritual body, Satchidananda Rupam. Antarbahescha lokam strin Aryemi askandita vrata Anugrahan Mahavishnu Avigata Gati Kvachir. Since then, by the grace of Almighty Vishnu, I travel everywhere without Vishnu. So Narad Muni is revealing his secret, that how he came to this spiritual platform, this elevated spiritual platform, by the grace of Almighty Vishnu. I travel everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world and the three divisions of the material world. Three divisions of the material world are the heavenly planets, the earthly planets, and the subterranean planets. This is because I am fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord. And how he has received this spiritual status? Because of his unparalleled devotional service to the Lord. The Prabhupada talks about the three divisions of material spheres as stated in the Bhagavad-gītā. There are three divisions of the material spheres, namely the Urdhva Loka, topmost planets, Madhya Loka, midway planets, and Adho Loka, downwards planets. Beyond the Urdhva Loka planets, that is to say above the Brahma Loka, are the material coverings of the universe. And above the spiritual sky, which is unlimited in expansion, containing unlimited self-illuminated Vaikuntha planets inhabited by God himself, along with his associates, who are all eternally liberated living entities. Śrī Nārada Muni could enter all these planets in both the material and spiritual spheres without restriction, as much as the Almighty Lord is free to move personally in any part of the creation. So this is the empowerment which Narad Muni has. He has the same empowerment and access as the Supreme Lord, as an associate of the Supreme Lord. In the material world, the living beings are influenced by the three material modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. But Śrī Nārada Muni is transcendental to all these material modes, and thus he can travel everywhere unrestricted. Srila Prabhupada also used to travel. He used to travel to any part of the world unrestricted. Sometimes he would even reach the country without visa. And Prabhupada said that this kingdom belongs to God. Who can stop him? No one can restrict. The Prabhupada had this conviction. We were speaking about conviction in the Lord. The Prabhupada had this deep conviction that everything belongs to Krishna. So none can stop him. So here, the Prabhupada said that I am following in the footsteps of Narad Muni. So Narad Muni would travel unrestrictedly, so did Srila Prabhupada, even at such an advanced age. He traversed the world 14 times in 12 years, in less than 12 years. So he can travel everywhere unrestricted. He is a liberated spaceman. Here Prabhupada used to say this, that he is the spaceman. He is the liberated spaceman. The causeless mercy of Lord Vishnu is unparalleled. And such mercy is perceived by the devotees only by the grace of the Lord. Therefore, the devotees never fall down. But the materialist, that is the fruitive workers and the speculative philosophers, do fall down, being forced by the respective mode of nature. The rishis are, as above mentioned, cannot enter into the transcendental world like Narada. This fact is disclosed in the Narasimha Purana. Rishis like Marīci are authorities in fruitive karma kanda, and rishis like Sanak and Sanatan are authorities in philosophical speculation, that is Gyan kanda. But Śrī Nārada Muni is the prime authority for transcendental devotional service of the Lord, that is Bhakti Shakti. All the great authorities in the devotional service of the Lord follow in the footsteps of Narada. By following his orders in the Narad Bhakti Sutra, and therefore all the devotees of the Lord are unhesitatingly qualified to enter into the kingdom of God. Prabhupada is giving hope for everyone, whoever follows. Prabhupada is saying, yeah, all the great authorities in the devotional service of the Lord follow in the footsteps of Narada. And Narada Muni has given this literature of Narada Bhakti Sutra. Prabhupada has translated it, Narada Bhakti Sutra. It's a small book where only the principles are given. Not much elaboration is there. Prabhupada is empowering. He's saying, therefore, all the devotees of the Lord are unhesitatingly qualified to enter into the kingdom of God by Vaikuntha, provided we have that desire. The most important aspect is, where is that desire to go back to the Supreme Lord? To the extent we have the desire, to that extent, one can unhesitatingly please the Supreme Lord of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Continuing further. Devadattam imam vīnam swara brahma vibhūshitam murchaya harikatham kayamanas charami aham. And thus I travel constantly, singing the transcendental message of the glories of the Lord, vibrating this instrument called a veena, which is charged with transcendental sound and which was given to me by Lord Krishna. So this veena, which Narada Muni constantly prays, is gifted to him by none other than the Supreme Lord Krishna himself. And Prabhupada talks about it. The musical stringed instrument called the veena, which was handed to Narada by Lord Sri Krishna, is described in the Linga Purana. This is confirmed by Srila Jiva Goswami. This transcendental instrument is identical with Lord Sri Krishna. This transcendental instrument is identical with Lord Sri Krishna. You know the principle? Prabhupada writes that anything that satisfies the transcendental senses of Krishna is also Krishna. This is the principle. Dayashil Prabhu, you are not hearing? The video is off. Where are you? So anything which satisfies the transcendental senses of Lord Krishna, it acquires the transcendental quality of Lord Krishna. It acquires the oneness of being transcendental. That means there is no influence of the material mode. It is beyond the jurisdiction of the three modes and also the influence of time factor. It is both beyond Kala and Guna. And of course, there is no question of the principle of karma being applied. It is beyond both Kala, Karma, and even Guna. So Narada Muni, the transcendental spaceman, he has this transcendental instrument. Sound vibrated by the instrument cannot be material. Okay. The transcendental instrument is identical with Lord Krishna and Narada because all of them are of the same transcendental category. Sound vibrated by the instrument cannot be material, and therefore the glories and pastimes which are broadcast by the instrument of Narada are also transcendental without a tinge of material inebriety. The 7 singing meters, namely Sa, Ra, Sa, Re, Ga, Ma, Pa, Dha, Ni, are also transcendental and specifically meant for transcendental songs. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Śrī Nārada is always fulfilling his obligations to the Lord for his gift of the instrument. And thus he is always engaged in singing his transcendental glories and therefore infallible in his exalted position. This is the secret. How Narad Muni is infallible because he is always engaged in singing his transcendental glories. Following in the footsteps of Śrī Nārada Muni, a self-realized soul in the material world also properly uses the sound meters, namely sa, ra, ga, ma, etc., in the service of the Lord by constantly singing his glories. As confirmed in Bhagavad-gītā 9:40, the Mahatmas or great soul have no business in life except singing the transcendental glories of the Lord. Who remembers the verse? 9:14. 9:14. 9:13 is Mahatma. The word describes the Mahatma, and the 9:14 describes the activities and engagement of the Mahatma. Mahatma nastu mam partha devim prakriti mahashata. There also is there. Bhajanti ananya manasa. The Mahatma has only one business. He is always engaged in bhajan. Bhajanti ananya manasa. Without deviation or distraction of his mind. Yatva bhut adim avayam. Okay, what is the 14th verse, Sonika?
Prabhuji, I don't remember whole, but Satam Kirtayanto Mam.
Yes, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Yatantascha Dridavrata Namasyantascha Mam Bhaktya Nitya Yukta Upasa. There also it is Nitya Yukta. Nitya means eternally and Yukta means engaged. And what are they eternally engaged in? Upasate. In worshipping me, in glorifying me. So how can one become Mahatma? By being engaged in worshipping and glorifying. So Prabhupada is empowering that whoever is following in the footsteps of Śrī Nārada Dev can achieve the same perfection. The Mahatmas or great soul have no business in life except singing the transcendental glories of the Lord. Anyone remembers the purport of the verse? Very, very significant, very important purport. Prabhupada gives many, many important principles in that purport. How does one become a Mahatma? Prabhupada says one becomes a Mahatma not by rubber stamp. Actually, Prabhupada is criticizing the so-called common man calling a political leader as a Mahatma. Got the point? So Prabhupada says how one can become a Mahatma is by associating and following a Mahatma. Simple. He is not a born Mahatma. It's not by the foolish people stamping someone as Mahatma. One becomes a Mahatma by simply associating and following the Mahatma. So one becomes a Mahatma. So we see Narad Muni, because he is constantly engaged. This is his secret. He is constantly engaged in glorification of the Supreme Lord. And the Lord gave him the instrument also. So he can have a musical glorification. And he has utilized that instrument to the full extent. Anywhere and everywhere, wherever he is present with his instrument, he is utilizing the instrument and he is utilizing his transcendental body in service of the Supreme Lord. Pragayata swaviryani tirtha pada priyashrava ahutaiva me shighram darshanam yati chetasi darshanam yati chetasi. The Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear, at once appears on the seat of my heart, as if called for, as soon as I began to chant his holy activities. So this is the super excellent spiritual platform of Narada Muni. He says that the Supreme Lord, he at once appears on the seat of my heart as if called for, without being called for, as if called for, as soon as I begin to chant his holy activities. So he is in constant association of the Supreme Lord. The absolute personality of Godhead is not different from his transcendental name, form, pastimes, and sound vibrations thereof. As soon as a pure devotee engages himself in the pure devotional service of hearing, chanting, and remembering the name, fame, and activities of the Lord, at once he becomes visible to the transcendental eyes of the pure devotees by reflecting himself on the mirror of the heart by spiritual television. See the nectar and the assurances and the principal promise which is revealed here by Srila Prabhupada. What Prabhupada is saying? That Lord becomes visible to the transcendental eyes of the pure devotee by reflecting himself on the mirror of the heart by spiritual television. Therefore, a pure devotee who is related with the Lord in loving transcendental service can experience the presence of Lord at every moment. It is the natural psychology in every individual case that a person likes to hear and enjoy his personal glories enumerated by others. That is the natural instinct. And the Lord, being also an individual personality like others, is not an exception to this psychology, because psychological characteristics visible in the individual souls are but reflections of the same psychology of the Absolute Lord. See the presentation of Srila Prabhupada, how he is encouraging all of us. The only difference is that the Lord is the greatest personality of all and absolute in all his affairs. If therefore the Lord is attracted by the pure devotees chanting of his glories, there is nothing astonishing. Since he is absolute, he can appear himself in the picture of his glorification, the two things being identical. Śrī Nārada chants the glorification of the Lord, not for his personal benefit, but because the glorification are identical with the Lord. Narad Muni penetrates into the presence of the Lord by the transcendental chanting. So this is the power of chanting the holy name or the glories of the Lord. Also, Prabhupada talks about the process of hearing, no less. It can uplift one to come to such a spiritual position where one can have constant association and vision of the Lord. Etadhi atura chittana matra sparshe chaya muhu avasindhu plavo drishto haricharyanuvarnanam. Haricharyanuvarnanam. Bhavasundhu plavo drishto haricharyanuvarnanam. It is personally experienced by me that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with the object, those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with the objects, can cross the ocean of nations on a most suitable boat. The constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. Bhavasundhu plavo drishto. Plavo means boat. Or plavo is boat. So how can one can cross? Like one can cross the river by being on the boat. So one is haricharyanuvarnanam. Haricharya means the activities of the Lord. And anuvarnanam. Anuvarnanam is a very important word. Anyone knows what this anuvarnanam means? Many places in Srimad Bhagavatam this word comes. Even many places in Bhagavad-gītā. Yes, there, Srila Prabhu.
Prabhuji, it's like following in the footsteps of the great Acharya, Prabhuji. Anusilanam in that way.
Yeah. Like Anushilanam, it is Anucharyanam. So Anu means to feel oneself less, not to feel oneself the best. And Charyanam means to follow into the footsteps or to follow the principle given by the spiritual authorities, not to try to create something of one's own mind. That is not Anushilanam or Anucharyanam. Very important. Just repeat what is already established. Nothing new. Because the potency is there. Haricharya Anuvarnana. Varnan means to describe. So how to describe? As it has already been established by the authorities or by those who have been empowered. The symptom of a living being is that he cannot remain silent even for some time. Why? What is the symptom that a living being cannot remain silent for some time? What is the difficulty? Pranav, what is the reason?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Reason is due to flickering of mind.
Due to
Flickering mind.
flickering mind. Srila Rupa Goswami answers this. Rupa Goswami has given the principle. I have given such a big hint that she has picked it up. Yes?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Because 6 urges, Prabhuji. 6 urges.
Yes. Vacho Vegam. There is a way to speak. That is why one cannot remain silent. There is a unending urge which comes from within to speak. He must be doing something, thinking of something or talking about something. Generally, the materialistic men think and discuss about subjects which satisfy their senses. But as these things are exercised under the influence of external illusionary energy, such sensual activities do not actually give them any satisfaction. On the contrary, they become full with cares and anxieties. Prabhupada is using this phrase again. Oh yeah, it is there in the translation also. That those who are always full of cares and anxieties. Why? Due to desiring contact of the senses with the sense objects. That is what the materialist is. They are always craving. They are always craving. This is called Maya, or what is not. That which cannot give them satisfaction is accepted as an object for satisfaction. So Narad Muni, by his personal experience, says that satisfaction for such frustrated beings engaged in sense gratification is to chant always the activities of the Lord. How is your experience? How is our experience? Those who are very much in cares and anxieties, are we able to convince them to chant? How many of you have had this experience? Please raise your hand. Our family members, our friends, our relatives. How many of them has accepted our advice? Anyone? None. No. They will not even hear what we speak. But a great Mahabhagavat died. Narad Muni is saying that this is the only remedy. If we really want to do good to them and make them come out of their suffering position, of their frustrated position, what we have to do? We have to somehow or other induce them, inspire them to come to the position of chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord, hearing and chanting process. And there is no other way. There is no other possibility. So Narad Muni, by his personal experience, says that the satisfaction for such frustrated beings engaged in sense gratification is to chant always the activities of the Lord. The point is that the subject matter only should be changed. They will continue the same activity, but the subject matter has to change. No one can check the thinking activities of a living being, not the feeling, willing, or working processes. But if one wants actual happiness, one must change the subject matter only. Instead of talking of the politics of a dying man, one might discuss the politics administered by the Lord himself. Instead of relishing activities of the cinema artist, see how a practical Prabhupada is. Prabhupada is giving the actual practical solution. Instead of relishing activities of the cinema artist, a hero or heroine, one can turn his attention to the activities of the Lord with his eternal associates like the gopis and the Lakshmis. The Almighty Personality of Godhead, by his causeless mercy, descends on the earth and manifests activities almost on the line of worldly. But at the same time, extraordinary because he is Almighty. He does so for the benefit of all conditioned souls, so that they can turn their attention to transcendence. By doing so, the conditioned soul will gradually be promoted to the transcendental position and easily cross the ocean of nations, the source of all miseries. This is stated from personal experience by such an authority as Śrī Nārada. And we can have the same experience also if we begin to follow. Prabhupada is saying not when we fully follow. We can have the same experience also if we begin to follow in the footsteps of the great sage, the dearmost devotee of the Lord. There are a couple of more verses. I'll complete this chapter. Yamadbhir yog pathe kamalobha hato muhu mukunda seva yadva tathatma adhana samyati. It is true that by practicing restraint of the senses by the yoga system, one can get relief from the disturbances of desire and lust. But this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul. For this, satisfaction is derived from devotional service to the personality of God. So he's continuing to diagnose the reason for suffering and frustration of the worldly minded. Yoga aims at controlling the senses by practice of the mystic process of bodily exercises in sitting, thinking, feeling, willing, concentrating, meditating, and at the last being merged in transcendence. These are the eightfold stages of samadhi, yam, niyam, asana. Same thing in a different way Prabhupada is presenting. And at the last being merged into transcendence, one can control the senses. The senses are considered like venomous serpents, and the yoga system is just to control them. On the other hand, Narad Muni recommends another method for controlling the senses, the transcendental loving service of Mukunda, the personality of Godhead. By his experience, he says that devotional service to the Lord is more effective and practical than the system of artificially controlling the senses. In the service of Lord Mukunda, the senses are transcendently engaged. Thus, there is no chance of their being engaged in sense gratification. The senses want some engagement. To check them artificially is no check at all, because as soon as there is some opportunity for enjoyment, the serpent-like senses will certainly take advantage of it. There are many such instances in history, such as Vishwamitra Muni falling victim to the beauty of Menka. But Thakur Haridas was allured at midnight by the well-dressed Maya, and still she could not induce the great devotee to fall into her trap. The whole idea is that without devotional service of the Lord, neither the yoga system nor dry philosophical speculation can ever become successful. Pure devotional service of the Lord, without being tinged with fruitive work, mystic yoga, or speculative philosophy, is the foremost procedure to attain self-realization. Such pure devotional service is transcendental in nature, and the system of yoga and jnana are subordinate to such a process. When the transcendental devotional service is mixed with a subordinate process, it is no longer transcendental, but it is called mixed devotion. So, Narad Muni is not recommending any kind of alcohol, any kind of adulteration. So he says that it will not remain on the transcendental platform. It becomes subordinate and is no longer transcendental, but is called mixed devotional service. Mishra. Yoga-Miśrā, Jnana-Miśrā, or Karma-Miśrā. Karma, what are the differences in all this Miśrā or mixed? Devdutt, what is Yoga-Miśrā?
Krishna Prabhuji, I don't know Prabhuji.
I could not hear. Did you say something?
I don't know Prabhuji.
Simple, you should be knowing. Ganesh, what is Yoga-Miśrā? We studied Yoga-Miśrā. In the 8th chapter, Krishna speaks about the Yoga-Miśrā Bhakti. Full chapter we discussed.
Probably by performing Ashtanga Yoga, trying to attain Supreme Prabhuji.
Yeah. But where is Mishra in that? By Ashtanga Yoga, if one is trying to attain the Supreme.
They also have the desire to attain some mystic powers.
Yes. And they don't want to attain the Supreme. They want to attain liberation, or they want to merge in the Supreme. That is their desire. So it is not pure. The desire is not to serve the Supreme. This is the mixture. The desire is self-liberation or self-freedom from suffering. So where is devotional service? Where is the devotional aspect to satisfy the Supreme Lord? So it is mission. It is alloyed. It is not pure. Of course, karma and jnana, you know. So we don't discuss that. Keep studying, keep hearing. Otherwise, the philosophy will not go deeper into the heart. It will remain on the surface. So nothing will change. You will continue to do the activity the same way with the same consciousness and remain with this alloy, like Mishra. So Prabhupada says is the whole idea is that without devotional service of the Lord, neither the yoga system nor dry philosophical speculation can ever become successful. Pure devotional service of the Lord, without being tinged with fruitive work, mystic yoga, or speculative philosophy, is the foremost procedure to attain self-realization. Such pure devotional service is transcendental in nature, and the system of yoga and jnana are subordinate to such a process. Yoga and jnana are called as sapeksh. They are subordinate, they are dependent. And bhakti is nirpeksh. When the transcendental devotional service is mixed with the subordinate process, it is no longer transcendental but called mixed devotional service. Srila Vyasadeva, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam, will gradually develop all these different systems of transcendental realizations. The text. Sarvam tad idam akhyātam yat prishto aham tvaya nagha janma karma rahasyam me bhavataschatma toshanam. O Vyasadeva, you are freed from all sins. Thus I have explained my birth and activities for self-realization, as you asked. All this will be conducive for your personal satisfaction also. Why did he explain? I have explained my birth and activities for self-realization. Janma karma rahasyam me bhavatas cha atma toshanam. All this will be conducive for your personal satisfaction also. The process of devotional activities from the beginning to the stage of transcendence has all been duly explained to satisfy the inquiries of Vyasadeva. Narada has explained how the seed of devotional service was sown by transcendental association and how they gradually developed by hearing the sages. See, very important, very, very important summarization. How the seed of devotional service was sown by transcendental association and how they gradually developed by hearing. The result of such hearing is detachment from worldliness. Very important criteria. How can one know that whether he is hearing or not? This should be the result. The result of such hearing is detachment from worldliness. So much so that even a small boy could receive the death news of his mother. The Prabhupada is giving the evidence of what it means to be detached from worldliness, or what is actually one who is attached in worldliness. So that even a small boy could receive the death news of his mother, who was his only caretaker, as the blessing of God. And at once he took the opportunity to search out the Lord. A sincere urge for having an interview with the Lord was also granted to him. Although it is not possible for anyone to see the Lord with mundane eyes. He also explained how by execution of pure transcendental service, one can get rid of fruitive actions of accumulated work, and how he transformed his material body into spiritual body. The spiritual body is alone able to enter into the spiritual realm of the Lord. And no one but a pure devotee is eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. All the mysteries of transcendental realization are duly experienced by Narada Muni himself. And therefore, by hearing such an authority, one can have some idea of the results of devotional service, devotional life, which are hardly delineated even in the original text of the Buddha. In the Vedas and Upanishads, there are only indirect hints to all this. Nothing is directly explained there, and therefore Srimad Bhagavatam is the mature fruit of the Vedic tree of literature. So we come to the end part. Suta uvacha evam sambhashya bhagavan narado vasavai sutam amantraya vinamranayam yayo yadrikshiko muni. Sut Goswami said, thus addressing Vyasadeva, Śrī Nārada Muni took leave of him, and vibrating on his veena instrument, he left to wander at his free will. Every living being is anxious for full freedom, because that is the transcendental nature. And this freedom is obtained only through the transcendental service of the Lord. Illusioned by the external energy, everyone thinks that he is free. But actually he is bound up by the laws of nature. A conditioned soul cannot freely move from one place to another, even on this earth. And what to speak of moving from one planet to another. But a full-fledged free soul like Narada, always engaged in chanting the Lord's glory, is free to move not only on earth, but also in any part of the universe, as well as in any part of this spiritual sky. We can just imagine the extent and unlimitedness of this freedom, which is as good as that of the Supreme Lord. There is no reason or obligation for his travel, and no one can stop him from his free movement. Similarly, the transcendental system of devotional service is also free. It may or may not develop in a particular person, even after he undergoes all the detailed formulas. Similarly, the association of the devotees is also free. One may be fortunate to have it, or one may not have it, even after thousands of endeavors. Therefore, in all spheres of devotional service, freedom is the main pivot. Without freedom, there is no execution of devotional service. The freedom surrendered to the Lord does not mean that the devotee becomes dependent in every respect. To surrender unto the Lord through the transparent medium of the spiritual master is to attain complete freedom of life. This is the final verse. 38th verse. Aho devrishir dhanyoyam yat kirtim sarangandhavana gayan madhyan idam tantriya ramayati aturam jagat. The glory and success of Śrī Nārada Muni, because he glorifies the activity of the personality of Godhead. And so doing, he himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all the distressed souls of the universe. Śrī Nārada Muni plays on his instrument to glorify the transcendental activities of the Lord and to give relief to all miserable living entities of the universe. No one is happy here within the universe. Why? Because this is utthāyedaṁ. Who can be happy here? Who accepts that this is utthāyedaṁ and does not want to increase his dukkha. So to that extent, he can feel some happiness or some relief. Others who are trying to reverse this utthāyedaṁ to sukhayedaṁ, they will only be frustrated. They will only experience frustration. So no one is happy here within the universe. And what is felt as happiness is Maya's illusion. The illusionary energy of the Lord is so strong that even a hog who lives on filthy stools feels happy. No one can be truly happy within this material world, within the material world. Śrī Nārada Muni, in order to enlighten the miserable inhabitant, wanders everywhere. His mission is to get them back home, back to Godhead. That is the mission of all genuine devotees of the Lord, following the footsteps of this great sage. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport to the first canto, 6th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Conversation between Narada and Vyasa. Hare Krishna. So we will stop the study and recitation of Bhagavatam for a time being from tomorrow. We'll come back to Ramayana because the travel date to Ayodhya is coming very close. So I was thinking, but the mission and vision is very clear. In this year 2024, at least we will close the first canto. There are 19 chapters. We have done just 6. It is only 1/3. And we have ended May. So I will increase the speed like I did today. Okay. So I will take at least 6 to 7 verses or maybe 10 verses at a time. And you have to be a little more attentive. So this was the storyline of Śrī Nārada Muni. That how Narada Muni came to such an exalted, empowered position. They were constantly glorifying. Satatam kirtanam. Hare Krishna. Anyone has any question or contribution? Yes, Sonika?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, as you mentioned that Narad Muni was able to move anywhere freely, even in the spiritual sky. And earlier it was means discussed that there are several universes, and for those universes there are several Brahmājī also. So Narad Muni are also there in all universes.
All universes, I don't know about that. And it is not that Narad Muni is. Narad Muni has freedom to move anywhere. What is the reason? The reason was also mentioned there, which we discussed briefly. How Narad Muni can move freely to any part of the material and the spiritual planets.
He was having power all as you mentioned there that he was having all the power as the parikas of Lord, means a Lord associates.
Having the same transcendental body as the Lord himself. Prabhupada said that there is no difference between the body and soul. So he had the transcendental body. But there was no restriction. So he could enter anywhere. It is not said that he is present everywhere at all times, but what is mentioned that he can travel to anywhere and everywhere anytime. Hare Krishna. Anyone else? This is the glorious history of Śrī Nārada. And why this is mentioned by Srila Vyasadeva? Why so many chapters, 5th chapter, 6th chapter, two chapters dedicated solely? What is the purpose of giving this history account of Narad Muni? It was mentioned. Why this history is being told? Why so much details were mentioned? Pradeep, your face says that you are puzzled. Hear with attention. Hear with heart. When you are already there, why allow your mind to cheat you, distract you? You should have a tendency of writing. Important things when they are coming, you should note down so that you don't slip. Don't allow the mind to skip it or let it slip. You write, you have stopped. Manoram, you have also completely forgotten. If you forget, you lose. I don't lose. This is what Bhagavatam says. Nate vidu swart gatim hi Viṣṇu. So much is the impact of the illusionary energy that what is most beneficial for us, we drop for the always. We are the first to drop that. And we are absorbed in what is most destructive for us. Very much absorbed in those things which will deviate, distract, and degrade us. Monica, you have also stopped writing. And what to speak of others? When the leaders are not writing, what about the other aspirants? There is no inspiration to write. If you two were contributing, the other were also contributing. When did you last give your write-up, Manoram Prabhu? Since time immemorial. No history is there. And you are smiling as if you have achieved a big, milestone. At least itch it. Itch it in your paper, if not in the heart or in your laptop. This is one way of telling the Lord that yes, I am interested, I am serious. Otherwise, yatha ikchhasi tatha kuru. Then you say change is not coming, perception is not changing, conception is not changing. Again and again, my mind is dragging me to the worldly thing. This is what very big example was given. How Narad Muni was out of worldliness. That example was there. Otherwise, we will never be out of worldliness. We will again and again turn around and submerge in worldliness. This history, this story is very conducive for self-realization. That is why it is being narrated. Okay, I stop here. It's a lot of time. Tomorrow is Ekadashi. So convene the meeting, but we will continue Ramayana. We'll continue Ramayana from where we were. We will continue the study of Ramayana and expose from tomorrow. Just few days left. Thank you very much. Śrīmad Bhagavatam ki jai. Śrī Nārada.